Alright, so now I'm going to introduce you to an entirely new concept as kind of a precursor to a much larger, broader concept in design. Essentially, this is you're going to organize imagery from low to high graphic content or graphic nature. This has nothing to do with explicit nature, like, explicit images or graphic imagery. It has to do with just the basics of the picture, like is it low graphic or high graphic. And essentially what that means is a low graphic image is less eye-catching. It has less contrast, less color, less detail. It's kind of not as enticing in some ways. Sometimes less is more, though, and so you just need a label for an image that is a little less graphic, a little bit less visual. High graphic imagery is any imagery that's the opposite of that. So very eye-catching, lots of color, lots of contrast, extremely eye-catching. So when you describe print media, that is one of the terms you're going to use for the photographs or the pictures you use in that media. Is that high graphic or low graphic? And that kind of also depends when you're making stuff on the needs of the client. Maybe they're a pretty laid-back company and they need something that's kind of in the middle, so they need like a medium graphic approach. Or maybe they're a very brand new and energetic company that's trying to attract young viewers, so maybe you need to make something very high graphic and eye-catching for them. Aside from that concept, your project you're going to take is pretty simple. You're going to take a name with at least 5 letters. It can be a name of anybody, but it has to be a real person. And then you're going to organize photos of that person in the letters of the name, from low to high graphic content. And since you're not going to photograph any of the images, what we're going to do is we're going to manipulate those images with Photoshop. So I'm going to teach you some tools and tricks for how to make a photograph low or high graphic in appearance. Manually, instead of just photographing it in a certain style. Because when you photograph somebody, or if you're a graphic designer, usually what happens is you have a project, you have an idea, and then you go meet up with a photographer and go shoot whoever it is or whatever it is you need to shoot for that project. You don't have all those resources, so we're just going to have to make do with what we can. And even though, you're not able to do that, sometimes after a graphic designer does shoot some photos with a photographer, they'll bring them into Photoshop most likely, and they'll even edit them after they take the photos. So it's pretty common practice to think in this way, and it's pretty common practice to kind of organize content this way. You're also going to practice organizing information and files for a much larger project. We're never quite going to get as large as you probably would when you're a graphic designer working as a graphic designer in the field, but this is kind of acquaint you with how to organize files and folders for much larger projects. And the project after this will be sort of a trial run of those larger projects, and we'll kind of get used to that as we keep doing that. One of the things you're going to use, and you probably haven't used up until now, is, or if you have, you might have forgotten how to use it, is a clipping mask. I'm going to walk through how to do that in the demonstration video. This is kind of key to this project since you're going to be using it to clip your photos into the letters of the name of the person you're doing. For my tutorials and for my demonstration video here, I'm just going to use Drake since there's tons of photos of him, and this is an example of what I want you to make for this project. He's got 5 letters in his name, and then I organize low graphic images or manipulate low graphic images and increase the graphic quality of the images as they go to the right here. So on the right hand side there's more pictures of him, they're higher, they're more intense colors, there's lots of things going on in them. So I'm going to show you how to do that real quick here in Photoshop and Illustrator. For your low to high graphic name project, what I'm going to recommend you do first is set up a project folder so that you can keep your photo files organized. Right now I got my folder and a bunch of photos. I just picked Kanye West because there's tons of photos of him and he's got 5 letters in his name, so might as well. I'm going to make a folder here, so right click and then go to new and then folder and then just name that pics, and you can store your photos in there, okay, by control clicking or by just clicking and dragging to select a bunch of photos, and then you can move those in there. I would keep those in a separate folder and then maybe create a folder for your Photoshop file or what have you. It's up to you, but try to keep your projects organized from here on out, because a lot of the projects you're going to do in this unit are going to require you to balance a lot of resources. So a couple other tips about finding imagery for projects in this unit. When you do an image search, it's helpful to go to search tools and size and then click large so that you only have large photos. When you find a photo you actually want to use, here's a nice ridiculous photo of him. Check the pixel ratio to see if it's large. It should be a couple thousand pixels in either direction. And then to actually download the highest res version of that image, you want to click on the view image option. I'm going to hold down control and click on that to open it in a new tab. And then once this is up, you can right click on that and then click save image to save it. And then save it obviously to your desktop somewhere. Or wherever you keep your folder with your images in it. Okay. The only reason for this is you want the full res image. If I just save the thumbnail, that's not all the data for that image. For this project, you need at least 5 photos. Try to save more than you think you're going to need, only because you never know what project or what photos are going to look like once you get them into Photoshop, and they may change a bit on you. So I'm going to save a couple more here. Just random photos. And then we'll switch to Photoshop. Okay, so the first photo I'm going to show you would be a low graphic photo. So a photo that doesn't have a lot going on. It doesn't have a lot of contrast or a lot of color. It just doesn't capture a lot of attention, so it would be a background image or an image that you would create to kind of be in the background. And the project here, I'm going to use a lot of the same sort of processes, so don't be surprised if you see kind of the same set of steps for each series of photos here, and that's because the skills are just sort of transferable. First, you're going to want to open an image that already looks a bit washed out. I'm going to pick this one with kind of this white background here. This would be a good image to start with. Okay, and just a reminder, if you get lost, again, there's a tutorial for all of these processes in my project folder, and instead of Kanye I use Drake, but same difference really for our purposes. First thing I'm going to show you how to use here is a adjustment layer. Okay, so a low graphic image is going to have a low contrast or not a lot of color on it, so we're going to use an adjustment layer to create that. To create a new adjustment layer, there's a little half black and white circle in the bottom middle of your layers panel, or there's the adjustment panel. If you don't see that open, go to Window and then Adjustments to open it. And then I'm just going to use the brightness and contrast adjustment. I'm going to turn the contrast way down and then the brightness up a little bit. Okay, and that's going to really kind of wash them out there. Another thing I can do, I can use the levels adjustment layer to kind of mess with where the true gray is. Okay, and then we'll do a couple more adjustments. One other thing I can do to kind of knock them back here and kind of make them a little less eye-catching or a little more low graphic is create kind of a paint layer and sort of paint like a transparent layer of gray over them if I want. If I just click on the background layer and then click new, I can fill this entire layer with the paint bucket just by clicking once. And then you'll notice you have for each layer here an opacity option up here at the top of your layers panel. If you just click that and go to the left, you can create kind of a sort of a low opacity white layer here, and that'll kind of wash them out and sort of reduce the contrast as well. Okay, once you're done with an image and you know whether it's low graphic or medium graphic or high graphic, just real quick, for saving these files, I recommend you just go File, Save As, and save them as a Photoshop file first. Okay, add maybe a number to it, and then click Save, and OK. And then I also recommend you save them as JPEG so they're a little easier to work with in Illustrator later. So again, File, Save As, and then from the Format drop-down menu, click on the Photoshop PSD option, and then that'll drop down that menu for all the different versions of files that Photoshop can save to. And you just want to save your image file as a JPEG or a PNG file or a TIFF or a GIF, and click Save, and then click OK. Try to save it if you're not going to give it a different name, try to save it in a different location than your original file so you don't overwrite that file. Okay, for this next image here, I'm just going to show you how to mask out a adjustment layer. Layer masks are extremely useful, and you might want to use this for a medium graphic image or a low medium graphic image, so kind of the middle-ish or left of middle. So in your layer palette, you're just going to make a new adjustment layer. It can be any kind of adjustment layer. I'm just going to make mine a black and white adjustment layer. And then, you know, of course you can adjust how light or dark individual colors are, just to kind of play with it. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to mask out part of this layer. I just want Kanye to be in color and the background to be in black and white. Because as you notice the original here, the background's pretty colorful and it's kind of overwhelming our subject here. So to do that, just click on the layer mask portion of our adjustment layer. And the layer mask portion of your adjustment layer is this white box with the chain link between it and the adjustment layer box here. You got to make sure that's active for this to work. And then you're going to switch to your brush tool. With your brush tool, you want to make sure that you have the default white and black set to your foreground and your background layer. Okay? And again, the hotkeys for switching to the default is just hit the D key on your keyboard and then the X key to switch between your background and your foreground here. And then you're going to paint with black and white on that layer mask. Obviously, I just painted wrong there. I want to paint Kanye back into color, so I'm just going to paint black on top of Kanye here, and you'll notice he'll come back in as color. And what we're doing is we're masking out the parts that the black and white adjustment layer affects, so that only the background is affected. Okay, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time making this mask look super duper awesome, but what you can do obviously is you can zoom in. Again, the bracket keys, left and right bracket keys, will make the brush larger or smaller so that you can kind of get those little detail areas. If you hit the X key, that'll again switch your color between black and white. Shift bracket key will make it harder or softer, and then obviously all your other brush options are up here as well, including other brush presets that you can try. Okay, I've already kind of showed you how to save earlier, so just kind of refer back to that section of the demonstration video if you need to know how to save. But I'm from now on just going to move on from image to image and show you a new technique with each that you can try for your low to high graphic project. Okay, I'm going to show you how to selectively change the color of something using a hue, saturation, color balance layer here, adjustment layer. So go to your adjustment panel or your layers panel and then create a new adjustment layer that is a hue and saturation adjustment layer. And then you can check mark a little tiny box called colorize at the bottom middle of your adjustment panel here. That will colorize your image, and you can use this for low to medium graphic, or you can use it to make a sort of normally kind of tame looking photo more colorful or more outlandish by colorizing it. And that's, I believe, what I'm going to try to do here. But I'm just going to be kind of timid and not change it too much. Let's color it blue for now, and then I'm going to create a layer mask here and show you some other options for your layer mask. Okay, again, review for layer masks. You want to paint with black and white. I'm just going to paint with black here just so I select the red heart down here so that kind of sticks out. And one thing about layer masks is you can invert them. And inverting them is really easy. As long as you have your layer mask selected, just make sure it's selected, it's active in your layer panel here. And then go to Image, Adjustments, and then Invert. And that will invert your mask. All the black areas will be white and all the white areas will be black. So now, before everything was kind of blue and just our heart was red, and now our heart is blue and everything else is normal color. So that's something you can do. And again, at any point in time, you can always open your adjustment layer and change the color of things. So if we don't want that heart to be green, we can make it, purpley blue there. And to edit our mask again, of course, we have to click on that mask to edit it, and then paint with black or white. In this case, we will now paint with white to add to our mask area. One thing I can do to make an image more high graphic is add more color. Obviously, you don't want to damage your original image, so when you're painting, try to make a new layer. So for this background layer here, I'm just going to click the new layer button in my layer panel, and then when I paint with my brush, a bunch of things you can play around with are things like blending modes. So if I make my brush a little bit bigger here, and I go up to my mode section of my brush options here and drop that down, you're going to notice there's a ton of different kinds of blending modes. Just play around with these and just see what they do. I'm going to use one of my favorite ones that's extremely crazy, and that one's called Difference. So if I start painting with Difference, and let's say I sample this red color here. Again, to sample colors, you can hold down the Alt key to sample them. You can also double click on your color swatch area in your toolbox to bring the color picker up, and you can of course use your swatches panel. But when I paint with the Difference blending mode here, let's turn up the opacity, it'll do some weird stuff, or it should do weird stuff. There it goes. Okay, so you notice whenever you paint over your original color, it'll paint a different color than what you originally had. So if I get real crazy with my colors here, it'll overlap those rather suddenly in weird ways. I can also do this for my layers. So my layers have blending modes as well. So on this layer here with my paint, I can change the blending mode from normal again to Difference, and suddenly everything's kind of crazy colored. And I can keep painting this to make it even crazier looking. Okay. Some other things I can try to make something more high graphic is I can add two images together, and I can do that using layer masks. It's really easy. First things first, you're probably going to want to extend your canvas so you have more room. To extend your canvas, go Image, Canvas Size. And if we want to add to the bottom of our canvas down here, we're going to make sure that we weight our anchor upwards so that we add canvas at the bottom here. And then we're just going to make our height just a couple inches larger, well, maybe 14 inches, and then click OK. And that'll fill in some extra space down here. Depending on what color we designated, that is the color that appears here, so be careful with that. Now I'm going to place another image in here and use a layer mask to kind of adjust that image's appearance. So to do that, place images into another, just go File, Place, just like you would in Illustrator, and then find an image you want to place into another image. It doesn't really matter what I choose. I'm just going to choose this one, and that's a great image to place in here. If your images have different resolutions, don't expect them to mesh well. I believe this image is a little bit smaller than this one, so it's probably not going to work all too well with it, but we'll use it anyway. When you place an image, it'll have this bounding box around it, And then when you're happy with where it is and how big it is, of course you can use Shift and your mouse key to make it larger or smaller. When you're happy with that, just use the little check mark here to place it. Okay, and it'll be on its own layer. Okay, you can reorganize the layers, but sometimes when objects get placed, they stay smart objects. So you might have to make them not a smart object. To do that, just right-click on them and click on the rasterize layer option. Now mine automatically became a rasterized object, and that's okay. I can move it around using the move tool. Make sure you select the right layer to move before you move something. You cannot move a layer unless it's selected. This isn't like Illustrator where if you click on something you can move it. You can right click on something and then you will have all your layer options there to choose from, but that's about as close as you come to clicking and dragging things like you would in Illustrator. It's a little bit different with this program. Okay, so quick reminder here, if you do make a mistake with something, you can Control Z to go back one step, but in Photoshop you can only Control Z once. If you really want to go back in history, you have to use your history panel. In the history panel, if you don't see it again, go to Window, History to open it up. Your history panel stores every single move you perform in Photoshop in a list of commands. So if I want to go back to when I accidentally painted this paint here, I got to go before that moment in time. Just click on that layer listing to go back to that moment. You can also individually delete them if you want, but that's a bit tedious. Just click back to that before the moment that you wanted to do anything with, and then you'll be back in that history state. When you start performing new actions, that will overwrite any previous history actions. So, you know, be careful. If I go back here and then I go back here, of course these history states are still here. I haven't made a new history. But if I click here and then I start doing new things, these history states will disappear. So that's something about Photoshop you might want to keep in the back of your head if you make a mistake. Okay, so now I'm going to show you how to add a layer mask to a layer that doesn't have a mask already. Obviously when you make a new adjustment layer, it has a layer mask already attached to it, but for our image right here we don't have a layer mask for that, and I want to get rid of this background without erasing it permanently. One way to do that is with the layer mask. So with that layer selected, go to the add layer mask button and click that button, and you'll automatically add a layer mask. Again, to use or mask out part of your layer with the layer mask, just switch to your brush tool and then paint with black to kind of delete and or add to your mask. Make sure your blending mode is set back to normal. It can be kind of confusing when you start painting and nothing changes. Okay, and I'm just painting black here to get rid of my background. And you might be wondering to yourself, well, why would you do this? I mean, what's the advantage over just erasing the pixels? Well, this is non-destructive. So what I can do is, if I don't like whatever I masked out, like let's say I don't like the fact that his shoulders are gone, I just have to paint with white to add those back into my image. Masks are always non-destructive, and they stay with the layer. So, you know, if I go to my move tool here, because these are linked, they will stay together, and I can move this image around and put it kind of wherever I want in this image above me. Okay, and they'll mask each other out. This can be super helpful for those of you who are like me and make mistakes frequently or change their minds as they work. You want to stick with layer masks because they're non-destructive and they're really, really useful. Okay, so assuming you've edited some images to make them high graphic or low graphic or medium graphic, and you've got enough images created, now you're going to put them together into your file. So you know, make a regular size file, and you can change the orientation to landscape with the artboard tool here, and then you don't really need anything special in here. You just need at least 5 letters, and you're going to put those images in all 5 letters to kind of show the progression of high to low. First, you got to make your letters. To make your letters, switch to the type tool, and then just click once to create type on a path, and then type the name of whoever it is you're doing, and then you can obviously you can highlight that name and then go to your point size here and turn up the point size of the font to make it larger, or you can go to your selection tool and then you can hold down shift and click on one of the corner points or the corner handles of your bounding box to stretch your type a little bit bigger. It doesn't really matter which method you use, it's up to you. And then at some point when you're happy with whatever type you have and your letters, you're going to want to expand those. Okay, so I've got my letters here and I'm ready to expand them and create some outlines. To create outlines, just right click on your font and select the create outlines option. That'll make these editable shapes. You'll probably want to ungroup them as well, so right click on them again and then click on the ungroup option. Okay, so now we can start placing our images and creating clipping masks and organizing them from low to high graphic. Again, your low graphic I just recommend to be on this side and your high graphic to be on this side. It's up to you though if you want to reverse it, just so long as there's a clear organization method to your images. So to place an image inside of a file, you go File, Place, and then go to your project folder, and hopefully you have it well organized. I know mine's kind of disorganized, so I'm just going to rely on my memory here. I'm going to start out with the low graphic image that I made. This is kind of whitewashed out. It's rather large, so make sure you zoom out and shrink it. And then we'll use a clipping mask to put it inside the letter K here. Okay, so we've got our image placed in our file here, and I'm going to put this low graphic image inside of this K here. For that to work though, the K has to be on top of this image. So I can do that one of two ways. I can go to my layer panel and I can take that file and put it beneath my K in my layer listing here. I can also use the hotkeys, Shift Control bracket key, in either direction to send it to the top or bottom of our file. Once you've got those arranged to create a clipping mask, it's easy. Just select the object that's going to be the clipping mask, which is our K, and select the object that's going to mask, which is our photo. Select both of those and then right click on it, both of them, and then one of your options will be make clipping mask. You're going to select that option and then it will mask your photo. Two things you can do. Once it's masked, you can double click on it to adjust the image and move that around if you want to, and then you can also click on the whole object, and then up in your options bar you can edit the clipping path or edit the contents of the clipping mask. I'm going to click on edit clipping path, and then I'm going to add a black stroke to my clipping mask here so we can see the letter a little bit better. Once you've got all of your images edited in Photoshop and you've got them kind of organized from low to high graphic, just use clipping mask to place them inside of your letters and then hand them in with each letter masking a different image, and each image getting higher and more graphic, more attention grabbing. As soon as you're done with that, again, make sure you save it as a PDF or an Illustrator file. Make sure your name is on it and something mentioning low or high graphic name in it to hand it in.